It all began in 2018, back when I was living in Clearwater, on Florida's Gulf Coast. I've always preferred staying in, keeping to myself, so when a colleague of mine, Alyssa, nearly a decade younger than me, kept urging me to go out, I turned her down again and again. She wouldn't let it go. Neither would another coworker, Sophia. After several weeks of constant persuasion, I finally agreed. I told Alyssa I'd join them the following Saturday night. As the weekend drew closer, she showed up at my apartment. She wanted to leave her car there and have me drive us. That request alone made my stomach tighten. I had been living in Clearwater for about 5 years, but I rarely ventured beyond my own area. Nightlife? I knew nothing about it. The furthest I usually drove was roughly 5 miles to a nearby Target. Anything beyond that, and I relied completely on GPS. That evening, we climbed into my car and headed toward Sophia's place. When we got there, she wasn't ready yet. So we went inside and waited. Once she finished getting dressed, the three of us squeezed back into my car. Since I was behind the wheel, Alyssa handled directions. After some turns and missed exits, we ended up at a crowded downtown lounge. Music thumped through the walls. Lights flashed in every direction. We found a small spot near the bar and ordered drinks. We had barely settled in when Alyssa leaned close and said, "I'll be right back. I just spotted someone I know." She asked Sophia to come along. A sharp wave of irritation hit me. They had begged me for weeks to come out, and now I was alone within minutes. Still, I stayed put. A few minutes later, they returned, both grinning. "My friend sent over a round," Alyssa said, placing a glass in my hand. I didn't question it. She worked beside me every day. I trusted her. We each drank. Then another round arrived. I'm fairly certain her acquaintance paid for at least 2 for each of us. Not long after finishing the 3rd drink, something shifted. The room didn't spin. I wasn't dizzy, but a heavy, suffocating sense of dread washed over me. Thick, immediate, wrong. I turned to Alyssa and said firmly, "We need to leave, right now." The next stretch of time is fractured. I don't remember walking out of the lounge, but somehow we did. The first clear image that returns is me sitting in my driver's seat outside Sophia's apartment building. I could hear Alyssa and Sophia talking nearby. I don't remember the exact words, but something in their voices, a tone, a phrase, something, triggered a primal alarm inside me. My body reacted before my brain could process it. Pure fight or flight. I slammed the car into drive and sped off. Whatever had been slipped into my drink was strong. I wasn't inexperienced with alcohol, and I had only consumed 3 club drinks, which are usually watered down. Yet my thoughts were scrambled. My hands felt distant from my body. I drove aimlessly through Clearwater, barely able to concentrate, just trying to figure out how to get home. At one red light, everything changed. 2 figures suddenly appeared beside my window. Before I could react, someone yanked at my car door. It swung open. I froze. My doors automatically locked once the car was in motion. I still can't explain how they opened it. 2 unfamiliar men were pulling at the handle, trying to get inside. That jolt of terror cut straight through the haze. I hit the gas and shot through the intersection. After that, nothing. The next clear memory is sitting in my parked car near a quiet residential street. Rows of dark houses. No movement. I stared at my phone, trying to unlock it, but the drug had twisted my thoughts into paranoia. Even pressing a simple button felt impossible. Eventually, I convinced myself I was alone. Safe, at least for the moment. I leaned my seat back and drifted into a deep, unnatural sleep. I woke just before dawn, around 5:30 a.m. The fog had begun to lift. My mind felt steadier. I turned on GPS and drove straight home. The moment I stepped inside, I collapsed into bed. When I woke again late that morning, close to noon, My phone showed nearly 24 missed calls. Most were from Alyssa. A few were from another friend, who sounded worried in a voicemail. I called Alyssa back. She sounded panicked, demanding to know where I had gone. "What do you mean?" I shot back. "Your friend drugged me. I wasn't staying around to see what happened next." There was a pause. Then she said something that chilled me. "Well, those drinks weren't supposed to be for you." That was all I needed to hear. She quickly added that she'd stop by later to retrieve her car. Before she arrived, the memory of those two men returned with brutal clarity. I needed to know if it had been real. I walked outside and examined my car. The driver's side door handle was damaged. The plastic casing had been ripped completely off. Someone had been holding onto it when I sped away, and it tore free. That physical evidence confirmed everything. It wasn't paranoia. It wasn't a hallucination. Someone had tried to get into my car while I was drugged, alone and vulnerable. I was furious and shaken to my core. I never spoke to Alyssa again. If there's one reason I'm still here, it's this. Trust your instincts. Your gut knows before your mind does. I'm a teenager living in a busy seaside town in a small European country. During the summer, tourists flood the streets. Cafes overflow. The boardwalk buzzes with energy. But once autumn arrives, everything quiets down. The nights grow longer. The air turns colder. The pride of our town is the beach. It stretches for several miles and blends into rolling sand dunes that are perfect for long walks. The dunes twist and curve, forming hills that can make you feel turned around. Yet, if you walk about a mile in almost any direction, you'll eventually find the shoreline again, or the narrow path leading back to the parking lot. From that parking area, it takes roughly 20 minutes at a steady pace to reach the deeper dunes. You're never truly isolated. During daylight hours, families stroll there with young children. Dog walkers pass by. It's known as a safe place. If you lose your bearings, you don't panic. You just keep walking. This happened a few weeks after the new school year began. Tourist season was over. Evenings were darker now. My friends and I are part of a local scouting organization. It's divided into 4 sections. River runners for ages 6 to 9, pathfinders for 10 to 13, explorers for 13 to 16, and finally, trailblazers for 17 to 19. We meet every Thursday evening from 7 until 9, sometimes indoors, sometimes outside. It depends on the season. That particular night marked the explorers' first meeting after the summer break. As tradition goes, we gathered at the parking lot near the dunes. The younger members would hike out to the tallest dune, known locally as the Sentinel. The older teens would guide the new 13-year-olds up the steep slope. Reaching the top symbolized their official welcome into the group. The explorers headed out first. Meanwhile, 8 of us trailblazers stayed behind to practice first aid for about 45 minutes. Once we wrapped up, we realized we still had time to catch up with them. The fastest walkers, including me, reached the dunes ahead of the others. The tide was completely in. That meant we couldn't cut across the beach to reach the Sentinel. Instead, we weaved through the dunes themselves. My friend, I'll call him Lucas, was determined to reach the group at the top. We shouted back to our leader, letting them know our plan. 2 others decided to join us, Daniel and Ryan. The remaining group split into pairs, spacing themselves out like checkpoints, so we could find our way back more easily. Then the 4 of us pushed forward into the near-total darkness. We stumbled up steep slopes, slid down loose sand, scraped our legs on sharp dune grass and thorny brambles. The moon cast faint silver outlines across the landscape. In the distance, we could see the silhouettes of the explorers on the Sentinel's peak. They were farther than we'd expected. We paused on a ridge to catch our breath. Behind us, We spotted 2 trailblazers standing where we had left them. We waved. They waved back. I was twisting the cap onto my water bottle when Daniel suddenly hissed, "Shh." We froze. At first, he only looked mildly uneasy. Then he shrugged, as if dismissing it. "What?" we whispered. "Did you hear that?" he asked. We hadn't. He said he thought something had rustled in the brush nearby. We blamed it on the wind, even though the night was unusually still. 10 minutes later, exhausted but stubborn, we climbed the final hill and reached the explorers. We greeted them, congratulated the new members, then quickly decided it was time to head back. By now, it was nearly pitch black, and none of us had brought flashlights. We tumbled down the sentinel, regaining balance at the base. Then we began retracing our steps, up and down, over ridge after ridge. Eventually, we recognized the outline of the ridge where the 2 trailblazers had been waiting. They were still there. A strange wave of relief washed over me, even though we had expected them to be. The 4 of us climbed up to meet them. I'll call them Patrick and Elise. Patrick was tall, nearly 6'4", broad-shouldered and strong. Known at school not just for his size, but for his sharp mind. The kind of guy who looked like he could wrestle a wild animal and win. Elise was quieter, observant, intelligent in ways that went beyond academics. Even in the darkness, I could see something was wrong. Patrick's face was tight with fear. Elise stood beside him, visibly trembling. "What happened?" Lucas asked, voicing what all of us were thinking. Patrick looked straight at me and said, "Were you wandering around down there by yourself?" Patrick asked, pointing toward a hollow between the dunes, a spot where people sometimes sneak off to drink or smoke. "No. I've been with the others the whole time." "Why?" I answered. My pulse instantly began to race. In that moment, all of us seemed to reach the same terrifying conclusion. You could almost feel the air change between us. Elise swallowed hard. "We saw a man," she said. "Hood up. Dressed completely in black. He was circling that clearing, staying out of sight. We thought it might have been you at first, but it didn't make sense." Patrick nodded, eyes fixed on me. "When we waved at you from the other ridge, he wasn't there. But the second you left, he showed up. Stood exactly where you'd been, just watching." A chill ran straight through me. Daniel must have heard him earlier. That rustling in the brush. It hadn't been the wind. We weren't alone. We had been followed. There's safety in numbers. That's what we told ourselves. The 6 of us moved together toward the clearing where the man had been seen. "He didn't even have a flashlight," Elise whispered, her voice trembling. Patrick and Elise sprinted toward the younger group to alert their leaders. The 4 of us remained in the clearing, scanning every shadow, every movement. When they returned, the atmosphere felt heavier, too quiet, the kind of silence that presses in on your ears. Somewhere out there was a man, alone, dressed in black, moving through pitch-dark dunes without light. We braced ourselves for him to lunge from behind a ridge. He didn't. We decided to head back to the parking area immediately. On the way, we regrouped with the remaining 3 trailblazers and our leader, quickly explaining what we'd seen. We were nearly clear of the dunes when a younger scout suddenly screamed. It cut through the night. Panic spread instantly. The group broke into a run. Lucas and I were at the front, so we reached the child first. He was sobbing, shaking, barely able to speak. He lifted a trembling hand and pointed to my left. There, on a ridge, the same man, standing still, watching us. Lucas shouted for everyone to run. He swore he saw something in the man's hand, a knife catching the faint moonlight. That was enough. The older teens lifted the smaller kids and carried them as fast as they could toward the parking lot. No one looked back again. I never saw the man's face, and I don't intend to. Parents arrived soon after, collecting their children. I'm sure many of them heard a softened version of the story, Only a few of us know how close it really felt. I was 23 when the next incident happened. I worked nights as a bartender at a rundown neighborhood pub about 3 blocks from my apartment. Nothing fancy. Just regulars, cheap drinks, and whatever sports were playing on the TV screens overhead. It didn't take long to recognize the familiar faces. Most were older men who'd been coming there for years. After my shifts, I usually walked home. The distance was short, about 10 minutes at a normal pace, and occasionally I'd share a drink with customers near closing time. Driving didn't make sense. I'd made that walk dozens, maybe hundreds of times. I never felt unsafe before, except when he was there. His name was Marcus. I knew from his debit card. He looked about 40, maybe a year or two younger. Thinning hair, pale skin. Always wore the same faded gray jacket, no matter the temperature. He always came alone. He'd sit directly at the bar and try to monopolize my attention. Didn't care about the game on TV. Didn't talk to other customers. Just me. He'd ask personal questions sometimes. Where I grew up. Who I lived with. What I did outside work. I kept my answers short. Polite, but distant. That's part of the job. One Saturday night, he showed up around 9:30 p.m. like clockwork. He nursed a single beer for nearly an hour, watched me while I worked. Not openly staring, but constant glances. The kind you feel before you see. Near the bottom of his glass, he asked if I'd like to hang out sometime, outside of work. I told him gently that I wasn't interested, that I preferred keeping work and personal life separate. His expression changed instantly. He forced a tight smile, tossed some bills onto the bar. Yeah, sure, whatever. Then he walked out. No tip. That alone was unusual. I felt relieved when he left, but uneasy too. The shift in his mood had been too sudden. I finished my shift around midnight, counted my tips, grabbed my jacket, stepped out into the cool, quiet street. I had just turned the corner onto the next block when I heard my name. My stomach dropped. I turned. Marcus stood beneath a streetlight. I hadn't heard him approach. He gave a small wave and started walking toward me. I stayed where I was but kept distance between us. He apologized for leaving abruptly earlier. Said he sometimes gets nervous. I told him it was fine, but I needed to get home. He nodded. I just wanted to ask one more time, he said. Could I get your Instagram or Snapchat? I won't bug you. I don't use social media, I replied. He paused, then smiled in a way that made my skin crawl. That's strange, he said. I've seen you on Instagram at the bar. My heart began pounding. How would he know that? Please leave me alone, I said, my voice sharper now. He smiled again. Okay, have a good night. I turned and started walking. A few seconds later, I heard footsteps. I told myself I was imagining it. I wasn't. When I glanced back, he was behind me, about half a block away, walking at the same pace. I sped up. He sped up. I slowed down. He slowed down. It felt calculated, controlled, like he was matching me deliberately. I kept heading toward my apartment building, hoping he'd turn off somewhere. He didn't. When I reached my building, I crossed the street instead of going straight inside. I stopped. He stopped too, standing partially in shadow beneath a tree. I couldn't clearly see his face, but I knew he was smiling. Why are you following me? I shouted. I don't want to call for help. No response, just standing there. My boyfriend's inside, I lied. I'm getting him right now. I hurried to the entrance and punched in the security code. The door buzzed. As I pulled it open, I heard sudden, fast footsteps behind me. I turned. Marcus was running. I rushed inside and let the heavy door slam shut. I didn't wait to see if it fully latched. I bolted up the stairs to the 3rd floor. My apartment was at the end of the hallway. Behind me, the main door downstairs burst open. Footsteps pounded against the stairs. He had gotten inside. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped my keys. His footsteps were getting closer. Closer. I finally jammed the key into the lock and threw myself inside, slamming the door shut and twisting the deadbolt just as he reached the hall. A second later, his entire body slammed into my door. The impact shook the frame. I screamed. He hit it again, harder, like he was trying to break it down. Then another door flew open across the hall. A man's voice shouted, "What are you doing?" The banging stopped instantly. Silence, then hurried footsteps retreating down the stairs. I looked through the peephole. My neighbor, an older man who lived across from me, stood in the hallway, confused and angry. Marcus was already halfway down the staircase. My neighbor knocked softly and asked if I was okay. I opened the door a crack, shaking uncontrollably. I told him everything. He stayed there with me. He said he heard the impact and thought someone was being attacked. I called the police. They arrived quickly and took it seriously. I gave them Marcus's full name from his card at the bar. The building manager pulled security footage, showing him running inside after me. My employer handed over surveillance video from the pub. The next afternoon, an officer called. They had identified him, Marcus Delgado, and were forwarding the case to the district attorney. The charges would include stalking and unlawful entry. He had chased me into the building and attempted to force entry into my apartment. Hearing it phrased that way made everything feel heavier, but also validating. The following morning, I went to the courthouse and requested a protective order. I had to recount everything to a judge. They reviewed the footage and police report. The temporary order was granted immediately. Officers served him soon after. Prosecutors confirmed they were pursuing charges related to attempted forced entry. I continued working at the bar for a while, but I never walked home alone again. Even with the court order in place, I felt uneasy every time I approached my building. I checked over my shoulder constantly, rushed through the entrance. Nothing like that ever happened again. But I never forgot how close it came.